Hi, welcome to Behind the Storyteller, a Notified podcast. This is the series where we take professionals from the worlds of IR and PR, or the corporate storytellers, and we get them here in the studio, in today's case, to hear their story. My name is Alan Murphy, and I'm here with my co-hosts Caroline Cullinan.
Hi, everyone.
And Pat O'Rourke.
Hey, how's it going?
And we have a very special guest here with us in the studio today, a Chicagoan like us. We have Bridgette Russell, the Senior Director of Marketing and Communications at the Field Museum of Natural History. I got it out without fumbling at all.
Perfect.
That was a mouthful.
That was inspirational.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming.
Really appreciate it. It's so great to be here.
Especially happy that we have a Chicagoan here.
Yes.
We've been so pumped about this episode for what's actually become like weeks or months since we first started talking.
It's been a while.
It's been a while to get us here.
Time is a construct.
For sure. It's
just
not real.
Exactly,
Say it again, Pat.
exactly.
Yes.
We're somewhere in the Jeremy Bearimy of it all. For anybody that watches The Good Place, you'll get that and enjoy it. If you don't, go watch The Good Place. It's actually a really good show.
Indeed.
That's the main takeaway for this episode. Is watch
right.
A Good
That's actually
Place.
all you need.
The
Yeah.
thesis statement right there.
And go to the museum, but
Right.
especially The Good Place.
Right. Indeed.
So Bridgette, but the way that we structure this podcast is we think of this episode as like a story in and of itself. And any good story is going to begin with a character, and we would love to get to know you a little bit. We've been chatting for the last hour in the studio. So lots of stuff off camera we were chatting about, but for the viewers at home and the listeners who are listening in, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're coming from, how you got to where you're at the museum.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, I am from Chicago, born and raised in the city. No shade to our suburban friends, but I am from the city of Chicago, grew up on the South Side. And so it's like, how far back do we want to go? Like when I was a twinkle in my But no, honestly, when I was literally about 12 years old, I knew that I wanted to tell stories, but I also knew that I couldn't tell fictional stories. I cannot remember characters' names. I was losing the plot, literally.
Yeah.
So I decided to become a journalist, and that's the path that I took. But if it tells you anything about my decision-making skills, I went into print journalism because I thought I was everybody's reaction. Yeah, exactly. I went into print
Caroline,
journalism.
for those of you, for the print journalism, there was a time when we printed papers.
when newspapers,
gag.
when you could hold the news in your hand, right? So I thought I was going to work for newspapers, and I did for 5 years after I graduated college, but kind of knew that the writing was on the wall. And so then I had an existential crisis at the age of 27, because if I am not a journalist, who am I? But it's like, Bridgette, you're not just a journalist, you're a storyteller. And there are multiple ways you can tell stories. So I freelanced for a while, and then I ended up sort of in the world of nonprofits, because nonprofits have the best stories, hands down. Fight me. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. I'm peaceful. But I ended up, my first sort of full-time comms job was at Goodwill in Columbus, Georgia. And it was incredible. And I also had a really incredible team and a boss who was such a strategist. And it was the first time I really got a chance to see her sort of be a connector, say, if then, and if we're talking about this, and how does this sort of play into the entire story? And I said, I want to do that. And it wasn't that I looked at it and said, I want to be a boss. It was that I wanted to be a strategist. I wanted to build a team and be a connector. And then from there, I decided to go into management. So my first actual leadership job was at the Columbus Museum of Art and Regional History in Columbus, Georgia. And then I found out, not only do I like being kind of a boss and a strategist, I like museums. This is actually really, really cool. And I was living in Georgia at the time, and I had gotten married, and my husband always knew that I wanted to come back to Chicago, that I wanted to come home. And there was a PR director job open at the Field Museum. And I go, hey, listen, don't worry about it. It's the Field Museum. They won't even see my application. I'm just going to do this. It's a good exercise, right? It's just a good thing. Don't you worry your pretty little head about it. And then I got the job, and I was like, just kidding. We're moving to Chicago. How do you feel about that? And of course, he's an incredible, partner. And so me and my husband and my daughter moved back to Chicago in 2021 so I could take the role. So yeah, I actually started off in PR at the Field, and then got the opportunity to oversee marketing and comms overall. And it's been absolutely awesome.
That is so cool. And It's nice that you found that love for museums too. So that started in Georgia.
It
the first job at the
did.
museum.
It
Okay.
started at an
Yeah.
art museum, which is quite different from a natural history museum.
How so?
But I think what museums have in common is that credibility piece and this piece that there's something for you to learn, but also have fun. Art is different in the way I think you ask, and this is completely from kind of the marketing and comms perspective, in the way that you ask viewers and visitors to sort of see and feel and interpret in their own way. Natural history is so much about telling the story of the earth. These are facts, right? Like this happened. So there is interpretation there, but it's a little bit different. And I think in that way, science and history can be a little bit more intimidating, where art just asks you to kind of come and feel and, and understand just kind of from your perspective, where science and kind of those hard facts can be intimidating and people like, oh no, learning. So that's been, I think, that's one of the challenges that I think you could just see from different types of museums and the way that you're talking and connecting to the visitors and inviting them into the space.
Interesting. I absolutely appreciate the way that you described that. I almost kind of, maybe for me, maybe it's just showing kind of my ignorance to the art world, but it almost kind of feels the opposite.
Tell me more. My own little focus group here. Let me get my notepad.
No, because I feel like with history or in the Natural History Museum, it's facts and it's like, okay, here's a story. I can be told a story. I don't need to necessarily come in with a preconceived, or not even preconceived, but having knowledge ahead of time, where going into an art museum, if I feel like, maybe if I don't feel like I know enough, I would go in and be like, oh, well, what am I supposed to think about these pieces?
Interesting.
And feel almost intimidated by that, because I don't have the refinement of knowing pointillism versus, cubism. These are like two words that I could think of right now off the top of my head.
That was the extent.
I was going to say, that's actually pretty impressive.
But I absolutely love the thought of like, okay, just go in and feel like, what does this piece make you feel like? And I think that maybe if more people started there in that place of like, just come in and experience.
Just come in and look at it.
We would have more people that really take that in, and then maybe aren't as like, oh, this is, I don't want to use hoity-toity, but like, that's only for the people that really understand it. So maybe that's just a preconceived notion for myself. And
no, I think that's incredible, right? And we all, and all of our perspectives absolutely, make sense. And that's the challenge of working in marketing and comms at these different institutions, because you're sort of trying to get in the head of every visitor. And I could absolutely see that. And for actually, when I was working at the art museum, we did our best to tell people, just come, just come and take a look. It's not about how much you understand or even about what you know from this artist. Just come, take a look and see what you think. And if you read the labels to learn more, then that's an option. So that's actually a really, really cool to think about. And hopefully my friends working at art history museums, art and history museums are taking note. So I think that's really cool.
My favorite part of like everything that Bridgette was talking about before that was where she goes, not be a boss. But no, this woman is a boss. not just a boss, because she is a boss, but a boss.
I absolutely appreciate that. And that comes along with when you decide that you want to be in leadership and you want to be in strategy, you're going to end up managing people. And so I've really just tried to be the type of boss that I either had in certain situations or wish that I had to make sure that I'm encouraging my team, to get what we need done accomplished. So far, so good.
What this is a bit of a side tangent, but I'm just curious. Talking about management and managing groups of people. What do you see as like your biggest green flag in a leader in an organization? I know I totally put you on the spot.
No.
She's like going to the museum, of course.
Like, obviously, taking your team to the museum for team building. No, I think being willing to explain. It's not just directives. It's not just because I said so, or let me give you your marching orders. I think a green flag of a good leader is that they are willing to pull back the curtain and to say, here is what I think, here is the information that I can offer you, and here's where I think we should go as a leader. And it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily ask for permission. Of course, as leaders, sometimes you have information that the rest of your team isn't privy to, and you have to make these decisions and you're responsible for those decisions, but don't shut the team down if they're genuinely like, okay, I don't quite, like, I hear what you're saying, but I don't understand what you're saying. Can you help me? And you should be willing to explain that and to be able to sort of explain what that position is, because the whole team is going along with you. And it's best to get that buy-in.
Yeah, that clear communication and transparency and honesty goes so far. And as you were saying that, I'm like going through like any past boss I've had, I'm like, that person did it really well, that one not so much.
Yeah. Because when you have a team that's just doing it because you said so, it's going to pop up in some ways. You're going to realize they didn't really understand it. They were just parroting it back to you. And something's going to come up where they need to make a decision and they're not going to be equipped or empowered to do so.
And so much of PR and marketing is creative. And I feel like sharing ideas needs to be trusting, like having a trusting environment. And so it sounds like that leadership quality is kind of privy to that. Yeah.
You kind of need that, especially as communicators. We should absolutely be communicating about where we're going and why. So that would be my green flag leader. And, going back to the boss I had at Goodwill and why she made such an impression on me is because as she was sort of creating the team and like sort of stitching it together, she explained why you're going to do this and it's going to connect to this. And I'm like, that is really cool. I think I can do that, And so I think people being able to see that also inspires them for what they may be capable of doing. That's why it's also so important for people to see different roles and kind of get behind the curtain so they can decide if that's something that they want to do as well.
Yeah.
Oh, and it makes such an impression, and it, no matter where you are in your career path, or in life, because we have, sometimes have second, third, in my case, like a 15th act in the number of jobs that I've done and the things that I've been in my life. But you don't always know what you want to do or what is possible. But when you have somebody that is willing to take the time and say, okay, here's why I'm doing this, or here's why we're doing this, here's what the method to the madness almost, it's formative to how you see your role, the organization, or your team, and then the organization, and then go, okay, well, I like that. I can do more, which is exactly what happened. Maybe not in that role, but you took that formative experience with that manager and then said, hey, I'm going to apply this to what I'm going to do for the next part of my life, the next part of my journey. And then that's taken you to these other places and then the Field Museum now. So... and then this couch with us.
Obviously, all roads led to this chair,
couch.
Which is a very comfortable chair.
Lots of great things happen, but this really is the best.
This is the top of it right here. But no, you're absolutely right. And I think it's so important, as you mentioned, it's not just like we think about it for young people, like, oh, if they can see it, they can be it. But you're right. Adults as well. Everyone needs to be able to see kind of what that thing is. And in communications, you literally can end up in any industry. I have a friend who works for NASA in communications, right? And so is he an astronaut? No, he's not a rocket scientist. He's sharp. He's great. He is not a rocket scientist. He is in communications, but he works for NASA because communications can literally take you anywhere, because every organization needs someone to tell the story, period.
8-year-old me hears about someone working at NASA. I'm like, oh, wait, that's so cool. He's an I forget, like, NASA isn't all astronauts and rocket scientists. There's a lot of, things going on behind the scenes. And like you said, communication can take you anywhere. It can get you into somewhere like NASA or somewhere in tech. You could pivot that in any direction you want.
Absolutely. Somebody's sending the press releases. The astronauts are flying the rocket, okay?
They send
somebody is somebody is answering the reporters and, coordinating the press events. So it's comms is really awesome and just has been an incredible opportunity for me, because obviously I am not a scientist, and being science adjacent, at the Field Museum, I've learned stuff. I tell people all the time, I learn stuff almost against my will. I'm like, how do I know that?
Give us an example of what you've learned against your
my
will.
gosh. So, there are different periods where dinosaurs lived, right? We think about the Jurassic, and that's not the only one. The Cretaceous is actually when T-Rex lived. And so some of these dinosaurs that we sort of lump together, they didn't even know each other. Like, they were millions of years apart. I think T-Rex might be don't quote me on this because I'm getting too deep. I think I had one thing for you. But like T-Rex might be closer to us than when it lived in terms of other dinosaurs. And, it's like, could this have fought this? It's like, yeah, maybe if they had been introduced, but it would have never happened. So I think things like that, and just knowing the names of different, organisms and periods of time. And I'm like, I don't know why I know that. I must have either read it somewhere or heard some scientist talking on the elevator. So it's pretty cool though. Also, I was, you can hold the Ask Me sign at the Field Museum. Okay, I feel like I need to explain more. Yeah. So you can, when it's very crowded, our visitor services team, our front of house staff, incredible. They will ask staff to volunteer to be on the floor, literally holding like an Ask Me sign to help visitors find the bathroom, find Sue, the T-Rex, and that sort of thing. And so one visitor comes up with his adult and he said, we're on a scavenger hunt and we're collecting all facts that relate to 6'7". Oh my gosh. And I was like, but then I said, Sue the T-Rex lived 67 million years ago.
Nice.
That's awesome.
And that's been carrying me for the last 3 months.
That's a good one.
She ate. Love it. Yes.
So, but I think it's so fun working at the Field Museum. And I have an 8-year-old daughter. She thinks I'm the coolest thing ever. She doesn't. She thinks where I work is the coolest thing ever. And so I have to thank the Field Museum for that clout that I wouldn't have otherwise.
That's so cool.
Love
yeah,
that.
It's a good time. I think it's just, we talk about dinosaurs a lot at the Field Museum because we kind of think of the dinosaurs as ambassadors, right? That's kind of easy to understand. Most of us have at least sort of surface level knowledge of dinosaurs. But the Field Museum, has like 40 million specimens and collections across botany and zoology and anthropology and geology. And it's the Field Museum, our collections are kind of a bit of a time capsule, right? Because we collect and we can study bird eggs from 100 years ago. And that's how we know that birds are hatching a bit earlier. And we think it's due to climate change. The collective we, the scientists, found this out. I did
You
not.
think that.
I did not find this out.
Bridgette was on that committee to figure that out.
Absolutely not. But so, the collections at the Field Museum, we have 150 scientists who study those collections and who are always publishing papers to study what's changed. And we think about the Field Museum kind of being in the past and its history, and it is, but it also has the keys to the future. And this is an ongoing group project, right? So what we don't find out today, the collections are there to help some scientists tomorrow figure it out. Mm-hmm. So there's a really cool research side of the Field Museum, and then there's the public side of the Field Museum where people can come sort of see and experience science for themselves. So,
interesting.
Super awesome.
I never knew that there was the scientist side of the Field Museum. Obviously, you see the public facing. I mean, in O'Hare, I think I've seen a dinosaur there. Yeah. But I didn't realize that there was science going on in the background.
Absolutely. The third floor, listen. So the third floor is where a lot of our scientists, a lot of our curators work. And there are labs up there. They're prepping fossils up there. They're putting lichen under microscopes and magnifying it by, I can't even tell you how much, to discover different things about the natural world and about our planet that will tell us, are there red flags going on? What's happening here? Tell us more about different species and how they evolved. So it's incredible, I think, in the comm space to balance that science and the fact that it exists and that we're trying to get more people to know and appreciate that with the public side. Because the thing about the collections is I think only about 1% of what we have is on view. So a lot of the collections are behind the scenes and are for study and research from scientists, for scientists all over the world.
So really, the public's just seeing the tip of the iceberg in terms of, wow, I had no idea.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very cool. And it's a shameless plug for becoming a member, because during members nights, it's 2 nights where we open up the whole museum and the public is able to go on the 3rd floor. They're able to get into those labs where we're prepping fossils and things like that. And it's reserved for members only. And it's actually coming up in May. I don't know when this is going to air, but it's going to members nights this year, 2 nights in May. So we're super excited about that. It's like a member takeover for the whole museum, and they get a chance to go behind the scenes in the collections. My favorite is the paleo storage, because it's dinosaur bones, the ones that just like aren't on view, just random femurs and whatnot, just,
just hanging out
the length of this room. And I'm like, no big deal. So yeah, it's really, really cool. Yeah.
I love that.
That's awesome.
So what has been one of the kind of big, and I know there are a lot of projects that you work on, things that are coming up, exhibits, but from previous exhibits, previous projects that you've worked on, what are some of like the highlights, and were there any, like, did you run across challenges on how to get them, like, to really get it across to the public of like, hey, this is coming up, this is going to be great to come enjoy? Like, what was something, an example like that would like kind of sticks out in your mind?
Oh my gosh, so many. But so the thing about the Field Museum, so it's a 130 years old museum. I would dare say most Chicagoans know we're there, but you haven't been there since 2nd grade, since your class field trip, and you're like, I saw it. It was cool. So I think, again, kind of that history part being trying to get across to people that we are a dynamic and changing museum, and that exhibitions change. One interesting challenge we had was when we got a new specimen that in the scientific world, rock star specimen, only the 14th ever discovered, because, okay, wait for it. Birds are dinosaurs. We know this, right? Like, birds are the living descendants of dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. So we have the evolutionary proof at the Field Museum. One of the specimens, a real specimen. It's called the Archaeopteryx. Mm-hmm. Now see how y'all, I'm losing you a little bit. It's okay. Stay with me. So, but the thing is, it's in a slab, which means that it hasn't, like, the bones haven't been taken out and kind of mounted. So it's in the slab that it was discovered. It's small. It's it's about the size of a pigeon. It's adorable. It's got a feathered tail. It has teeth. And so what it is that it's a bird and a dinosaur. And this is very, very cool. Now, explaining that, you see how long it took me, right? Now, putting that in like a press release or in an ad, where are we going? Yeah. What are we doing? So we really had to work with the team to get the public as excited as we were about this like incredible specimen. It is named after Chicago. Like London has one, Berlin has one. So we have the Chicago Archaeopteryx at the Field Museum. And it's not big like the T-Rex. It's about what it symbolizes and how important it was in proving Darwin right about evolution. So we had to, like, back in, was it 2022, really sort of pitch that. We had an incredible partner in WTTW that helped us sort of shape and tell that story and got really excited once we explained it to them. And we had a press event where we invited like the governor and the mayor, because this is the Chicago specimen. And this also not only for the public to be excited about, but sort of continues to seal Chicago as like a scientific sort of capital where more people, researchers are going to come to also study this incredible fossil. But that was hard. That was hard to figure out. We eventually had an incredible press event. We had a credible run and work with WTCW. But we had to teach reporters how to say it. Archaeopteryx, right? Yeah. And it was in the press release phonetically. And that still didn't come across. I have to show you some of the clips. They tried. But
is there like a montage of people mispronouncing it?
Yeah. It's very cool. But so it's challenges like that where we know it's important. We recognize its value scientifically. We're excited because the scientists are excited. But how do you get people and the public excited about what this means for science and what this means for Chicago? The team really did an incredible job with press. It was international and national that it got picked up. It was wonderful. But it was brainstorming about how we do this. So it's like bird, dinosaur, both. And most people, well, I won't say most, but a lot of people, if you're like, birds are dinosaurs, tell your friends, right? So I think that got a lot of people interested and really sort of plugged in and invested. And yeah, the Chicago Archaeopteryx is at the Field Museum. It lives there now. Cutest little thing you ever seen. Little teeth.
Like
Love it so much. Yeah, it's so another thing is flat, right? It's in the slab. It's in a slab. And it's small but mighty. Mm-hmm. And just incredible value from the scientific perspective. And so that's something at the Field Museum that making sure that we're making that connection and hopefully bottling some of that excitement to the general public.
I have to imagine that's a pretty regular struggle in your role, like where there's new things going on at the museum mm-hmm. that are really, really cool, really, really exciting, also a little complex.
Yes.
And trying to get the general public excited about it and to wrap their head around it in as few words as possible, mm-hmm. that has to be an incredible challenge. Because you talked us through it, it took maybe like 100 words or so. That's not going to work well in a tweet necessarily,
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think that's where the team comes in brainstorming. Okay, what do we need people to walk away? If you don't remember anything else, birds, dinosaur, 14th specimen, Chicago has it, and it's real. Right? If you don't remember anything else, especially if you love dinosaurs or if you're familiar with evolution, I think we also understand that everybody isn't going to be excited, and that's also okay. You get to the people who will connect with it, and that's great. And then you try other messages or other projects for other audience segments.
Yeah, it's not going to connect with every single person
Correct.
Who reads it.
Yeah,
but for those that it does, it's you want it to really be impactful.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. And another thing, I was just thinking about your question, Pat. We're always trying to figure out how to get people to the museum because it's easy to think about like it's the Field Museum. It's kind of always there. Mm-hmm. It's open. They're not going to run out of tickets or run out of space. Like, oh, we didn't go this week. We'll go, another time. So one thing we've really been thinking about is sort of seasonal activations. One really cool seasonal activation that we started for the first time last year was Halloween. There is an exhibition at the museum called Underground Adventure it's kind of creepy anyway, because the bugs are big and mm-hmm. you get shrunk down to kind of go have this experience to really look at the bugs. And it talks about soil quality and how different species thrive and things like that, and the spiders. It's a little creepy anyway, mm-hmm. right? Like, I mean, it's creepy just because it's, Tuesday. But for Halloween, it was like, well, what if we creeped it out even more and had a seasonal activation that from late September to early November, people could come to Underground Misadventure, right? Because now it's all Halloweenified, and instead of Underground Adventure, it's Underground Misadventure because there was some sort of spill and now all the bugs are really big, and we added some enhancements, some different bats and things that would sort of hop out at you. And that was the first time we had done, something like that, and it was really cool. And the numbers and the data after the fact showed that Chicago seemed to really come out and respond to that a little bit more. So that Chicago visitation was up in October a little bit more than it would have been. So I think that's an example of how do you lean into those seasonal trends? How can you be flexible with what you already have, right? We didn't build a new Halloween exhibition. It was looking around to see what we have that could be enhanced or could have sort of an overlay and could be activated to respond to this trend that we know people like Halloween, right? And so it was a really great experiment. I think we're going to do it again and maybe make some changes this year. Yeah.
I'm going to keep an eye out for that.
For sure.
Especially next Halloween too. My wife is a big Halloween fan.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I know who I'm coming to first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Yes. And weird segue, but I think this is a good segue. I know where am I going with this? Oh no, because we actually met at a PRSA event.
Yes.
A lot of times getting to kind of go to those events and hear about events that are happening or talk to people and maybe not be in their normal sphere, like of where you would find out about events that are going on, but going to those events and in the communicator's world, it's great to be able to run into people, find out about these things, learn about different events that are going on, and be able to kind of share those things that are happening with like-minded people that are thinking about the same things. And then even to kind of pick their brains about like, okay, well, we've got this coming up. What are we thinking about?
Right.
What can we do for this? So I think that's a really, I love kind of tying all of that and the fact that we have those types of environments to be able to go to. And like, because Caroline and I go to a number of the PRSA events, and it's just, not really being the actual communicators ourselves. We help facilitate those communications, but to get to talk to those people like yourself and learn about what they do, see how they operate, and it opens up the mind to like so many different things that you all have to think about, and helps us, do our job better, I think, to be able to say, hey, let's help you do this. Or, oh, that's actually something really cool that I didn't think about. Have you thought about this? Or have you tried this tool to help that, go down that path?
Definitely. And I mean, PRSA, so I'm immediate past president of PRSA Chicago. So I was president last year.
President, yes.
And that's where I absolutely met Pat and became acquainted with Notified. And it's been an incredible, run ever since. But absolutely being able to talk to different communicators, especially in Chicago, where we do have some of the same challenges. We're all looking at data. We're all trying to figure out where AI fits in this whole, sort of craziness. And I think the thing that makes communication so transferable is also what makes it so relatable, regardless of what industry you're in.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone has an audience. Everyone has to show results. Everyone has to figure out ROI. My ROI looks like visitorship. And of course, things that we all know, like press engagements and influencer, this and that. But I mean, it gives us kind of this common language and this common ground. And you're absolutely right. Having that network of peers, it's like, okay, how are you handling this thing? How are you handling communicating with your team or communicating with your boss of the strategy and where you think we need to go? Everyone has those challenges, and orgs like PRSA definitely help us navigate that.
And even with the creepy underground exhibit around Halloween time, I'm sure there could be someone watching this or listening to this facing a similar, sort of challenge, maybe not working at a museum or anything like that.
Right.
But hearing, your example and thinking, okay, how can I repurpose something that we already have to try to, shine more of a light on it and get a more public awareness. So yeah, regardless of the industry, for people in comms, people in PR, it all relates, and there's takeaways that you can always get, regardless of the industry.
Yeah, for sure. And repurpose is my middle name. Like my team, it's like, how can we take one story and flip it like 50 different ways where it's the same story, but it's tailored a little bit more for this channel or for this channel, or we pull out the part that really matters to this group or that group. It's all the same story. We've just figured out how to tell it a couple of different ways, and you're going to be more effective that way. You're also going to have more sort of team collaboration and buy-in because we've all decided that the same thing is important, and we're all invested in, okay, well, how do we get it to this audience or to that audience? And so, yeah, again, it's just like a really big group project. Yeah. And you need that for sure, because if everybody's off sort of doing a different thing, first of all, everybody's exhausted. Secondly, you sort of divided your resources. So yeah, absolutely. I repurpose it, like use it again and again, and make some tweaks here and there, but use it until, you get sick of it, because it's someone's first time hearing about it. Even once you're like, I'm done. Okay. I don't want to do any more with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything old is new again.
I'm telling you that is the truth. That is the truth.
You think about like fashion, music trends, all of that. It really everything is cyclical.
It is.
So,
yes.
Being able to repurpose that. And I loved what you just said about it's somebody's first time seeing, hearing, experiencing this. So it may be, and especially, you work there, this is part of what you're doing. It might be your 10,000th time, but Caroline might go and it's the first time that she's been a part of it. Alan might go, I might go. And it's, you get that wonder.
Yes.
And it's, kind of, it helps, I think for me, it helps rejuvenate the desire to continue to do it.
Absolutely. So. And when I was thinking about coming here to talk to you all, I was thinking about, sometimes people ask me, because I work at a natural history museum and I, work with scientists. They're like, are you a scientist? And it's like, no. And here's the thing, if they can get me to understand it, we're golden, like we are. And you never want to lose that, right? You always want to pretend like you're coming at this for the first time. I don't like the phrase dumbing things down because that's not what it is. It's just that I'm not the expert, and that's okay. You've been studying this the last 50 years, and I love that for you. I have not, and most of our audience has not. So I'm always able to come from the perspective of, I don't know about this. Tell me about this. Tell me why I should care. Tell me why I should be excited. And I don't want to lose that. So, I'm fine with I don't have a PhD. There are folks, at the museum who are not scientists who do, and lovely. But it's not a requirement for communications because honestly, I need to be able to translate it for the majority of people who are not PhDs and who don't study in this area. We have incredible scientists. They're awesome communicators, and they know that that's the role that we're trying to do from the PR and marketing perspective is say, hey, how can we sort of package this in a way that it's understandable for most people? So, and that works. And I think that's just an incredible part of what I do. And I can't get too comfortable in terms of I know how to do that, or I know that. So most of the people we're talking to will know that as well. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not dumbing it down. You're making the information accessible to the masses.
Correct. Yeah. Throw out the phrase dumbing it down. Yeah. That is not, nobody's going to respond with, let me dumb it down for you. I beg your finest pardon. Right. It's not that. No, people aren't dumb because they don't understand what you've studied for the last 3 decades.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know. Yeah. For sure.
Well, Bridgette, I'm seeing the clock and how long we've been talking. I can't believe it's already been as long as that.
So another hour and a half.
Right?
I was going to say. So when can we schedule part 2?
Right? Oh my God, I would love that. But to kind of wrap things up, for anyone listening who is either currently in PR and comms, mm-hmm. or maybe a journalist out there who's thinking about making the sort of a pivot like you did, what's one takeaway that you think that you would like the audience to have after listening to this episode?
Absolutely. Everything is usable. I will say every single position that I've been in, every single place where I've worked, there's always been some nugget that I could take to the next opportunity. Even in PRSA, I started off as treasurer and I was PR director. And I was like, oh, numbers, okay. But I figured out, sort of how to get it to a place where it's like, okay, I get this. And then I got promoted at work. And guess what I'm doing? Budgets, right? So everything has, especially if you really sit down and think about it, everything has a nugget that you can take on to the next. And when you look back at it, you've built this incredible library of expertise and knowledge of your own making, right? You're your own resource if you really look at it. So, good luck out there. And you've already got what you need.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Bridgette, thank you so much.
Thanks
really,
for having
this
me.
has been great.
So fun. I really, it's worth the months long wait.
I'll be in touch about trying to make a part 2.
Yeah.
For sure.
For sure. This is great. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. And for everyone listening and watching at home, thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, all those places where we're putting these episodes. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care.